we realized it was a great opportunity for us all to come together and work on the issues that many of us are facing in our communities, both with our businesses and communities at large. So this is an opportunity for us to connect with our legislators, hopefully the first of many. We were very excited to have 3 of our legislators join us on this very busy week, with it being the start of the legislative session. So thank you so much for being here. I know you're very, very busy. We have had a slight change of format. Instead of utilizing the Zoom rooms tonight, we are just going to be all together in one room. So we'll do some round robin introductions with our legislators, and then we will open it up for questions. So you can either raise your hand or place your question in the Q&A, and we'll be monitoring that. So without that, I want to take most of the time to hear from our representatives. So first we have Senator Dylan Roberts with Senate District 8. Do you want to go ahead, and I'll just tell you who all is on the call here. We also have Representative Elizabeth Velasco with House District 57. And then we have Representative Megan Lukens with House District 26. So thank you all so much for joining us. And let's go ahead and get started with you, Dylan, with your introduction, and then we'll go to Elizabeth and then to Megan. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Angie, and thanks everybody for joining and for your interest. Really excited about the Mountain Chamber Alliance. First of all, I'm glad that this new group is formed, and hopefully can harness all of your collective interests for legislative matters and everything else happening in our region. But thanks for having me be a part of this. I'm Dylan Roberts. I am the new state senator for Senate District 8, which encompasses 10 counties that stretch from central Colorado all the way to the northwest corner. So I'll list all 10 off, and I know many of the chambers are in this area. So it's Gilpin, Clear Creek, Summit, Grand, Jackson, Routt, Moffett, Rio Blanco, part of Garfield, and Eagle County. And so it's a very diverse district, and very excited to be in this new role. Previously, I'd served 2 terms in the House for House District 26, which was Eagle County and Routt County. I grew up in Steamboat and live in Eagle County now. So have enjoyed working with many of you, and look forward to working with all of the chambers on the call and the Mountain Chamber Alliance.
Elizabeth, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having us today. I'm Elizabeth Velasco, newly elected for House District 57. House District 57 is a new district, and it goes from Parachute all the way to Aspen. It includes Garfield County, Eagle County, both the Roaring Fork area of Eagle, and Pitkin County. So I'm also a small business owner myself. I have run my own interpreting and translation agency for 10 years. I have worked in the restaurant industry as a chef with the Ritz-Carlton, have worked with Bell Resorts and older mountain communities around the area. I currently live in Glenwood Springs and have worked closely with Angie before in other events. And we have our beautiful Strawberry Days Parade once a year. Definitely want to make a plug for that. And I'm very excited to be here today to share more about this legislative session. And definitely we want to make sure everyone in our communities has the opportunity to thrive.
Thank you, Representative Lukens. Do you want to take your turn?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Megan Lukens. I am the newly elected state representative for House District 26, which includes Eagle, Routt, Moffett, and Rio Blanco counties. So the most northwest corner of the state. Thank you, Mountain Chamber Alliance. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for putting this on. Until about 3.5 weeks ago, I was a teacher at Steamboat Springs High School. And then, of course, on November 8th, I was elected. So I finished up my semester teaching social studies at Steamboat Springs High School, and then was sworn in 2 days ago in the Colorado House of Representatives. It's the honor of my life to be here. I'm Very excited to be talking with all of you. Certainly, having the teacher background, we all know that education is so important to a successful economy as well, and that's so important to supporting our communities, is having a strong education system. But of course, I just look forward to working with all of you, all of the chambers throughout the Western Slope, throughout the district, throughout with the Mountain Chamber Alliance, and I look forward to your questions this evening.
Thank you. And then we're going to go back around and just ask some more general questions. Could each of you tell us what committees you're on, any particular bills that you're going to be sponsoring this year, and in general, what are some of your legislative priorities for 2023?
So I am serving on 3 committees in the Senate. Excited to be the chairman of the Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. That's the committee that, of course, has jurisdiction over our agricultural issues, as well as all natural resources issues, including water, which is absolutely a major priority for me, and I know my colleagues on this call. I'm also a member of the Judiciary Committee. My background is as an attorney, a deputy district attorney for Eagle County, and so look forward to serving on that committee that deals with all criminal and civil legal issues. And then I'm also a member of the Local Government and Housing Committee in the Senate, and it used to just be the Senate Local Government Committee, and they've added the term housing to the title, which I think is a really important symbolic, but also a policy implication to add housing as one of our main priorities that it's named in a committee. So I'm excited to be on that and continue our work on affordable housing, which I know is important to all of you and your businesses and your employees. So I've introduced a few bills already since we started on Monday that I'm really excited about, and I'm working on several more that will get introduced to the next few weeks. Senate Bill number 1, actually the first bill introduced in the Senate, is a bill that I'm sponsoring, and Representative Lukens is one of the sponsors in the House. This is a bill that we've been working on for a while, that will authorize explicitly in statute the state public-private partnership office. This is an office that got created a few years ago at the state level. It will specifically authorize them to engage local governments and municipalities and private developers to build more housing for workforce on state-owned land. We have a lot of unused state-owned land across the state, and we think this is an excellent way to save money on the building costs by taking away the land price and catalyzing some public-private partnerships between local governments and private developers. One of the projects that's been identified as the first recipient of these dollars, if we get it passed, which I'm confident we will, is a project in Eagle County, actually in Dow Junction, where the CDOT facility currently is. We've been in conversations with CDOT to move some of their trailers and facilities off of that land and open it up for workforce housing development in conjunction with the town of Vail, town of Minturn, and Eagle County. And so we're really excited about that. It'll be a 3-phase project that could result in hundreds of units being built. So I'm really excited about Senate Bill 1. Senate Bill 6 is also a bill that I'm working on that has to deal with rural economic development, something you're directly interested in. Senate Bill 6 would codify in statute the Rural Opportunity Office within our state's Office of Economic Development and International Trade, OEDIT. And it's been an initiative OEDIT for the last few years, but this bill would formally codify the Rural Opportunity Office, give them some staff. And I hope it to be a sort of a one-stop shop or a clearinghouse, if you will, for rural communities, rural chambers, individuals to get technical and financial assistance for economic development in their communities. It could help with transitioning communities, like coal transitioning communities. It would also help with resort communities dealing with specific economic impacts, and really help bring together all of the opportunities that exist on a state, local, and federal level to help businesses thrive and spur more rural economic development. And then moving forward, I'm working on several bills that have yet to be introduced related to water. I think all of our communities depend on protecting our water future, and we are facing some very serious questions about our water future in Colorado. And there's more that we need to do as a state to prepare, especially on the Western Slope, for ongoing drought and increased demand from the West as well as the Eastern Slope here in Colorado. So I'm working on several bills related to water policy and modernizing Colorado's water policy, providing more funding for our water plan and things like that. So we are doing everything we can on a state level to conserve and promote conservation and protect our Colorado water, so that if and when the federal government gets involved on the Colorado River or elsewhere, that we have made the strongest case possible that the cuts don't need to come from Colorado, they need to come from down basin states. So that's briefly what I'm working on. There's a lot of other bills, and I look forward to your questions and your comments about what's important to you, because that often shapes what we're working on. But those are some of the big priorities for me as we kick off this legislative session.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Representative Velasco, would you answer the same question, please?
Yeah, so my committees are energy and environment, also agriculture, natural resources and water, and appropriations. So, you know, my first bill is going to be one of the first 5 in the House. It's around consumer protection, and it adds language access to or consumers who work with insurance companies. So this can be home or health. And we know as small business owners, or access to insurance is so important. So that's one of the first 5, but I'm also working on emergency response. I'm working with the Department of Public Safety to make sure that we are being proactive in the face of a changing climate, in the face of fire, as we know has been something that has affected our community greatly, that affects our business, our business's ability to stay open. I-70, so definitely working on emergency response. And I'm also working on a water bill, and also housing, from affordable housing to medium income housing, which I think has been a gap for us, because sometimes people don't have access to affordable housing because we're young professionals, or we are small business owners, and we're on the edge of qualifying for affordable housing. So I think that's a gap that I am going to be working on, you know, affordable housing and medium income housing, and definitely look forward to your questions. But with my background as a wildland firefighter, public information officer with the Forest Service, I definitely, you know, want to make sure that we have access to clean air and clean water, and that we are being proactive for when there's an emergency.
Thank you, and Representative Lukens.
Yes, so I have been appointed to the Education Committee as well as the Agricultural, Natural Resources and Water Committee. So very excited about being appointed to those 2 committees. Those were my top 2 choices, both of which I think are very important in important committees for the whole state of Colorado, but of course the Western Slope. So my first few bills are bills that either connect to what I talked about a lot on the campaign trail, which is the economy, the environment, and education. So my first bill is improving rural broadband services, and I am working on this bill with Senator Roberts. This is a bipartisan bill that will continue funding rural communications, whether that's voice or broadband services, especially since we know that's been such a challenge due to high costs of providing this service. So this bill will help get resources and funding to improve rural broadband services. And as you know, the Mountain Chamber, we all know that that's so important to our rural communities. And I'm working on that with the Colorado Telecommunications Association. So we are moving along with that since this is my first bill and I'm newly elected. I just found out today my committee date and everything for this bill, so I'm very excited about that. My second bill is a bill to address the teacher shortage. So I'm working on this with the Colorado Education Association, as well as a few of my colleagues. So this bill is called, it gets the idea based off of what's called an interstate teacher mobility compact. If you're interested in learning more, you could check out teachercompact.org. And so the idea of this bill is that it will simplify the process for out-of-state teachers to get their Colorado teaching license. Right now, it's pretty difficult for out-of-state teachers to get their Colorado teaching license. And as we all know, it's already pretty difficult to move into Colorado. So we might as well try and make at least this specific topic, this specific category, a little bit easier for teachers especially. So very excited about this bill, especially because I know from a lot of my former colleagues that moved from out of state in-state how difficult this process is. In addition to that, I am working on a bill with the Department of Agriculture. So it's a bill that will support the Agriculture Workforce Development Program. So this combines agriculture, which is so important in our district, as well as internship and supporting the future of agriculturalists. So that's kind of, education and agriculture combined. And so it will expand financial incentives to farmers and ranchers and agricultural businesses to hire interns and really help the future of agriculturalists. And so with those three bills, we are very much in the phases where we're maximizing stakeholding and talking with as many people as we can to gather information and opinions on these bills. But I'm very excited about those first three bills. Just as a state legislature, I know that we're prioritizing things like making our state more affordable, reducing the cost of housing, healthcare, childcare, investing in public schools, addressing climate change and securing clean air and water, and just defending our freedoms and democracy. And so that's a lot of the main focuses that we will be looking at the state legislature this legislative session. It's the legislative session is 120 days total, but we have 117 days left. And I look forward to really getting results for Colorado and for the Western Slope.
Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll create some questions. If anybody has questions, please go ahead and place them in the Q&A and we'll be monitoring those. I'd also like to make everyone aware of the chat that's happening. Chris Matera is doing a great job of putting in links that are being referenced. So that's a great place to look for some additional information. The first question in the Q&A is directed at Senator Roberts. And the question is, what do you mean with the statement of modernizing water policy?
Excellent question. So, and thank you for that. So what we're talking about is we're having conversations about how do we work within existing Colorado water law, which is a prior appropriation system, a system that has been in place for a very long time. How do we still keep that in place? Because that is an honored Colorado tradition and well set in Colorado law. But how do we respond better to the ongoing drought that we're having, or the drastic cuts that might be imposed on us from a federal level, particularly in the Colorado River Basin? So we're working with stakeholders like the Colorado River District and others to have a conversation about, are there policies that we can put in place that recognize the continued drought that we have rivers that are running drier faster, and streams that are not healthy, that need more support? How do we work within existing law in regards to modern times? So there's a lot of details that are still being worked out on that, and I look forward to sharing bills in the future. But I think we're all having that conversation on a conceptual level of, we are in a scary situation. We need to do more to protect our Colorado water. We need the downriver states to do a whole lot more, but what are we doing on a state level to prepare for the future that is in front of us? So I know that's a little vague. We're still working on specific language, but I hope that gives you an idea of where we're headed.
Thank you. And the next question is for Representative Lukens. This person says, my experience in the education system is the admin makes healthy salaries, but teachers are still capped. Is there a way to manage teacher salaries to strong living wages in Colorado? Perhaps bonuses for teachers that excel?
Wonderful. This is a great question. Thank you so much for asking it. So funding our education systems is a top priority, especially for the Education Committee this legislative session. I know that something that I talked about often on the campaign trail is that Colorado is 50th out of 50 states for lowest teacher pay. And we are certainly in an education crisis that the state legislature is definitely focused on, and we have a lot of education advocates ready to work to find a sustainable funding source that will be sustainable for years to come. So I will, in specific regards to that question, I will just note that the determination of how much an administrator gets paid versus a teacher gets paid is actually up to individual school districts. And so that's a great topic that I would certainly encourage you to talk to your school boards about. The state legislature allocates money to send to the school districts, and then the school districts decide what to do exactly with that money. I do know that in the governor's most recent proposed budget, we are looking at an increase of $19,000 per classroom, and then the school districts could decide how to allocate that money. And I also know that something that greatly hinders our education system is the budget stabilization factor. The state legislature last session brought down the budget stabilization factor to the lowest that it's ever been. And I know that there is a lot of hope that we can continue to buy that down. In addition to that, we're looking at a few different bills this legislative session to look at Tabor caps and Tabor refunds and look at allocating some of that money to go towards education. If that were to happen, if that were to pass at the state legislature, it would actually be sent to your ballot. Because of Tabor, we need our taxpayers to vote on anything that has to do with taxes. So there may be a big ballot measure this November in regards to education funding. So this is a great question, and I know there are a lot of ideas coming to the Education Committee this session in regards to this issue, and I look forward to working on those important issues because, like I said, education is so central to our communities.
Thank you. The next question is for Senator Roberts. Speaking of underutilized resources such as state land, what are your thoughts on any planned action to facilitate the expanded use or new use of railroad lines?
So this is a very timely issue. I imagine you're referencing the Uinta Basin Rail through Eagle County all the way up to Leadville and beyond. If you're not, let me know. We can talk about it more broadly. For that is currently a decision that's being made by a court between the county government and the federal government. So there's no involvement from the state legislative level, at least in any direct jurisdiction. I have significant concerns with that, of course, given that the rail line runs right along rivers, and any spill would be catastrophic for our water quality in the area and would hurt our way of life and our economy. So I know that there's discussions going on with the Eagle County Commissioners, federal government, potential lawsuits. So I'm following that. I've talked to our federal representatives and shared the concern I've heard from the Eagle County community and beyond about that. There might be a chance you're talking about in Northwest Colorado, the rail line. There are ongoing discussions that I'm very glad to hear are happening between Union Pacific and Routt County and Moffat County on possibly turning the rail line into commuter rail to connect Craig and Hayden with Steamboat, so that those communities can be a place where people who work in Steamboat are able to live and find more affordable housing. The Routt County Commissioners are also the direct negotiators there with Union Pacific and our federal partners. So I'm supportive of that effort. I hope it's continuing and happy to lend my voice. The state legislature, for better or for worse, doesn't have any jurisdiction over our rail lines. Those are all federal law. So while we can offer our support, we don't get to pass any legislation that implicates that.
Thank you. The next one is, this is kind of a long one. We may need this person to jump in, but I am the development director with Mountain Roots Food Project, a nonprofit focused on making our local and regional food systems more regenerative and sustainable. I'm not sure if Gunnison County is represented here. I'm very excited to hear all of your interest in agriculture and participation in the Ag and Resources Committee. Thank you. Mountain Roots is on the cutting edge of an incredible project that will have regional impact. Are any of your resources for me in Gunnison County are there any resources available for this group in Gunnison County regarding this project? Would anybody be able to answer that?
I can take a pass at it, and if my colleagues have anything to add. If you haven't connected with the Colorado Department of Agriculture yet, you should, and if you need those connections, we're happy to make it. There are several programs that during my time in the House I was involved with passing that have created grant opportunities for new ag producers, for young farmers, and innovative agriculture practices. There's a below market rate loan program that provides access to agriculture producers, especially new agriculture producers. There's a bill that Rep. Lucan and I are going to work on later in the session to expand a internship program for people who want to start working in ag during the summertime. And so there are many resources available, and we dedicate a lot of our American Rescue Plan funds that we got from the federal government to the Department of Agriculture to help promote and expand our agriculture industry. So let us know if you haven't contacted the Department of Agriculture, and because that's what first comes to mind of what you're talking about. We've also added significant funding, and there's another bill this year from Senator Cutter that was introduced to further support and fund our food banks and I think that, based on your question, might be some of the places where you provide food. So that I believe is incredibly important, and hope we can get that bill passed this year.
So I'm going to hop in with a question, change things up a little bit. And also, you may have noticed another change in video. So Representative Elizabeth Velasco's Chief of Staff is now on, while Representative had to step out briefly. So we still have the ability to answer questions for her district. But one question from generally for all three of you is, you have 120 days and a lot is happening in a very short amount of time. So what is the one thing that you will consider the legislative session a success this year? What's your one major goal for this session?
You want me to go first? Sure. So obviously, if I had to pick one, and knowing, of course, that I have multiple goals, just like everybody else does. But if I had to pick one, it would say, by the time we get done with this legislative session, that the state legislature and the state as a whole has continued its positive momentum at solving or alleviating our affordable housing crisis. I was really proud to be a part of the historic investment we made at the legislature last year into funding for affordable housing development and stabilizing existing affordable housing, but we are obviously not going to solve that problem in 1 year. And so if we can continue our momentum with things like Senate Bill 1 that I talked about, and other bills that will come regarding affordable housing that both of my colleagues are working on, as well as many others, that would be a success for me this legislative session. And the reason why I say that to this call specifically is, you all know, housing is an economic issue. If we don't solve our affordable housing crisis in the mountains, we are going to be in serious trouble when it comes to making sure you have employees for your businesses, making sure our schools have teachers, making sure our hospitals have nurses, our police departments have officers. And so I think all of the challenges our communities face really trickle down to the housing issue. So continuing our momentum on housing would mean that this session is a success for me.
I can go next to give Rep. Velasco a little bit more time to think, since she just got back. I completely agree with what Senator Roberts said. And again, there are so many different things that I can think of. I guess that I'm going to go a bit broader than Senator Roberts did. And I genuinely believe that all the bills that I'm working on, and there will certainly be more bills to come, but I believe that they will all make a positive difference for people within my district, and therefore people in Colorado Colorado as well. And so I think that is, that's just what I'm trying to really think about. At the end of the day, will I be helping make a positive difference for people in the district and help, help make a positive impact in people's lives? And so I know that feels very broad. I think that I'm very much in the Rep Velasco and I are both in the new legislator class. And so we're kind of in this phase of maximizing our learning as well. And so they've been, the staff at the Capitol has been so helpful in getting us all situated with new legislator orientations and new legislator retreats and mentors and mock committee practice and mock floor debate practice and things like that. And so I'm just trying to take it all in order to be as effective as possible to really make a positive impact for people in our district. So I like to think that my bills all do that, and hopefully we can get those bills across the finish line and get those results for the people of Colorado.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for your patience. And to me, a successful year, a successful legislative session would be making sure that our community's voice is heard, making sure that I'm vigilant, of everything that's coming and making sure that works for us. We know that, we are definitely different, and definitely things that work in urban communities don't always work in rural communities. So I really look forward to doing that and working together with our urban and rural legislators to make sure that our voices are heard, that I'm including stakeholders, even if they're not my bills, that I'm elevating their voices and elevating my voice, to make sure that these solutions are working for everyone in our communities, that are working for our business owners, that are working for, our families, because we know that, it's hard to make ends meet, especially when you're a working family, when you're trying to pay rent and keep the lights on in your business and keep the doors open. And I feel like we're still recovering from the pandemic, that it was hard, to deal with the Grizzly Creek fire, to deal with the closing of I-70. So I definitely want to make sure, that our voice is heard and that your voice is heard. So, always my door is open. I want to hear from you. I want to make sure that we have that input, and even if it's not my bills, that our voice is there and that those solutions work for us.
We definitely appreciate hearing that. I know part of the reasons that MCA came together was because we needed a louder voice in the rural mountain area, and it's sometimes hard when you're going up against the Front Range, and their world can sometimes be slightly different than ours, especially when roads get cut off and the way in or out of a community may not be available. So we're definitely familiar with that. To field another question, this one's directed at you, Senator Roberts. With water issues, do you see any possible economic relief for businesses that may be impacted with lost income due to water issues? For example, in Gunnison, there's the drawdowns happening in the Blue Mesa Reservoir, which is having a direct impact on those businesses.
That's an interesting question. And yes, I think if not direct relief, we want to do what we can to try to prevent that from happening for, more. The Department of Natural Resources, which houses the Colorado Water Conservation Board, has come out with their budget request for this year, and they're asking for significant amounts of funding for to increase their work and to try to do more to protect communities from the implications of drawdowns and drought and other negative consequences. So that is definitely on their radar, and the sooner we can get back to normal, if you will, or prevent those harms from happening, the better. That's also touches back to what I was talking about earlier on some of the legislation I'm working on, and try to find new ways to deal with drought and rivers not running as strong as they used to, is we can try to fix that. We can try to make sure that we are conserving more water and allowing more water to go towards, uses that benefit the communities and businesses that rely on outdoor recreation and other uses of the water. So there, obviously for the last few years, there's been a historic amount of stimulus funds that have gone out, mostly in relation to the COVID pandemic. So I'm not aware of any direct assistance related to drought related impacts for businesses, but we do have the larger goal of trying to alleviate that from happening in the first place.
So I have a broad question that's going to lead into a more specific one. And Representative Velasco, you also brought this up. What is the best way for constituents to communicate with their elected officials? And what tips do you have for those who want to follow the legislative session? And this is for all of you, because you all may have different priorities in communication.
Yeah, so I can go ahead. Definitely, I can share my email and my my office information with y'all, so that you have it. But I invite you to come to our town halls, to come to the Capitol, come visit us. The legislative session only goes until the middle of May, but this is definitely not a part-time job. It's a full-time job. So I would love to go and meet with your business and see your businesses and do a tour of your facilities and engage with you. So, I think that and I'm sure this is for all of us, we want to be here for you, and we want to learn about what you do, and, definitely engage with us and ask questions and tell us your priorities, and definitely follow along to the bills that are being introduced and passed, and let us know if you want to be part of the stakeholding, because we definitely want to hear from you, and I'll also make it a priority to engage and to make sure that I'm checking in with our mountain business owners to make sure that these solutions work. But I think that a lot of times, I can tell you from personal experience, that politics feels like it's not for us, but we are public servants. We were elected by you, and we are accountable to you, the community. So we are working for you, and we want to hear from you. So I'm always definitely very excited to engage with our constituents, with our voters, with people in our community, and our business owners.
All right, Megan, I dropped your information in there, but if you want to elaborate of any other ways that constituents can interact with you.
Sure. Yes. Thank you for dropping my information in there. Feel free to reach out via email if you want, kind of current live updates. Definitely follow me on Facebook. And then I also posted the link to sign up for my legislative newsletter as well. So that's a bit more detailed of an email that I'll hopefully be sending out every 2 to 3 weeks. But I love hearing from constituents. I love hearing from folks on the Western Slope, especially in regards to bills that I'm working on, but any opinion that you might have about other bills that are coming forward at the state legislature. In general, I mean, as I mentioned, I'm also a teacher. So if you have any young people that would like to come to the Capitol and visit us, we'd certainly love to show them around and say hello and talk about the legislative process, especially. But definitely open door, open communication. Would love to talk with anyone about any interests that are important to you.
And I would just, in addition to everything, of course, I think we all publish our emails and our cell phones broadly. Never be hesitant to reach out to us. If you're sending an email, it's always great to start the email with, I'm a constituent that lives in whatever town. And so you get our attention that you live in our district. We, as you can imagine, get a lot of emails from people across the state, especially on the more controversial bills. But so if you can identify yourself as a constituent from the top, that really helps, and we will make sure to get a response to you. As far as following bills, the legislature's website is leg.colorado.gov, leg.colorado.gov, and that is a great place. I think Chris or someone put it in the chat. So that's where you can look up all the bills that are being introduced. And as some people on this call know, because they've done it, a really great way to get involved in legislation that you're passionate about or that you're opposed to is you can participate in the legislative process and testify at a committee hearing, either for or against a bill. And since COVID, and we've kept it in place, there's remote testimony. So you can testify from wherever you are via Zoom and come straight into a committee hearing and provide your testimony. So I would encourage everyone to do that. I know a lot of the chamber directors that have been in my district have done that, and I really appreciate it. It's always really valuable for us to have the perspective from our region shared at committees at the Capitol, because it's harder to get down here to the Capitol for all of you. So we don't get to hear directly, our colleagues don't get to hear directly as often from people from the Western Slope. So that's a great way to fix that. And so I would encourage you to do that and engage in the legislative process and testify either in person or remotely.
Remote testimony was a huge accomplishment, or I would say silver lining. I know we'd been working on that for a while because it is a heck of a drive from the Western Slope down to Denver for a short testification. Oh God, I can't talk. Anyway, going along with the question of how to get involved, we do have a specific question tied to the land use and workforce housing, specifically state land. We have one community, one chamber director who's really working hard and sees a potential solution in her community. So she wants to know not only how can she help with the bill itself, but in general, kind of get the ear of our legislators to see, like, here's a real world example of how this bill could take place. How can she get involved, help get this bill passed, and hopefully get her idea from idea to reality?
Sure. I'll start, and Megan, if you have anything to add. So one, I would say, please send me an email, Senator Dylan Roberts it has dylan.roberts.senate actually our emails that's changed. I'll type in my new email, but send me an email so I have your information, and I will get in touch with you and make sure you're on our list for Senate Bill 1. We would love for you to testify in favor of Senate Bill 1 if that's something you're comfortable doing, either in person or remotely. But then more broadly, assuming Senate Bill 1 passes, and I'm confident it will, that will then kick it to the Public-Private Partnership Office, which is a state agency that will engage local governments and chambers and nonprofits and private developers to identify these projects and get them going across the state. So I'd be happy to connect you with the head of that office, and they would be happy to work with you. It's a possibility they already have, if your project has been talked about with some other folks, that it's on the list. I know I mentioned the Dow Junction project in Eagle County. I know there's one in the Roaring Fork Valley that they're looking at as well. And these should be happening all over the state, in my opinion. So we would love to make that connection too. So I will type my email in the chat when I'm done talking, and please send me your info and we can take it offline from there.
We have another question, but Keith, I might need you to clarify because I don't want to assume you were discussing broadband. But the question is, there are significant pitfalls with middle mile logistics between Denver and the mountain communities. Are there any bills being introduced to address these concerns? And I'm going to assume broadband middle mile, although there is technically supply chain middle mile. So I might need Keith, you to put that in the Q&A for us to clarify. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say, thank you, Keith, for that question. Yes, we are working on, and I'm really excited about the bill I'm doing with Rep. Lukens about extending the time period for communities to access some of the high cost support dollars. And that would go towards middle mile or last mile deployment. But there are some underlying problems with broadband deployment that you identified. And we are in conversations about a bill that is yet to be introduced that would hopefully fix some of that. And we have made some reforms on the broadband board over the last couple of years, and the creation of the governor's broadband office. I hope will, and we actually, the director of that office is from the Western Slope, from the town of Eagle. And so we're really excited about that. Brandy Ryder, who's running that office. So I know she has the Western Slopes concerns in mind. And hopefully that will change some of the problems we're facing. We've had an amazing amount of funding come from the federal government and from the state government towards broadband, but it's only as good as it actually gets deployed. And so we're working on some of those legal changes to make sure that that happens. And middle mile was in reference to supply chain. So I might need to reassess my answer there, Chris. Let me see.
We all know broadband's important, so it was a good answer anyway. Now we just have the other middle mile to discuss. And I know, just first and foremost, I-70 staying open has been a huge challenge for our community, and there's other supply chain issues.
Yeah, and I hear there's a huge backup on I-70 at this very moment around Georgetown. So I-70 improvements are a big priority. We're really excited about Floyd Hill and the money that they're receiving from the federal government through the bipartisan infrastructure bill, as well as the state infrastructure bill that we passed in 2021. And I want to thank many of the chambers here who supported Senate Bill 260 in Colorado, which is the largest investment we've ever made into transportation in Colorado. It's going to generate $5 billion towards transportation infrastructure over the next 10 years, which is incredible, and many projects in the mountains and on the Western Slope have been identified. And so that's the longer term construction and maintenance. We also have passed funding for wildlife crossings to try to make our roads more safe. And then I'll kick it to Rep. Lukens, because she's working on a bill regarding the traction law and how to make sure that gets better enforced. It's a bill that we passed in 2019 to update the traction law on I-70, but we've had some problems with enforcement. So we're working on a bill to make that a little bit better.
Yes, and I can just jump in there. The bill that Senator Roberts and I are working on with CDOT is still very much in the planning phases, the beginning phases. So we're kind of doing stakeholding. We're talking to the Truckers Association as well. But we know that the movement of goods and services on I-70 is so essential to our economy. And so just making sure that we can try and minimize traffic, try and keep I-70 safer is so important. And so we're in conversation with CDOT in order to figure out how we can make this the best bill that it can be, in order to be sure that that we can continue having that movement of goods and services and make sure that we are keeping I-70 safe. So we're in conversation about which route we want to look at, and that's we're kind of still figuring that out. So it might be increasing fines on the traction law if people violate the traction law, but we're also looking at a few other options as well. And so that's we're looking at that being my fifth bill. So that's kind of just farther down the line, and we're still figuring it out. But I know that is such an important aspect on the Western Slope. We all interact with I-70 at some point. So definitely working hard on that bill.
It looks like we have another representative joining us, Mark Catlin. Just wanted to let folks know. I don't know if Representative Catlin would like to do a short intro. Thank you for joining us. We know you're all so busy this week.
Well, thank you very much.
A follow up to that point we were just making as well.
Go ahead, finish up what you're doing, and I'll introduce myself. Somebody said they wanted to follow up. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to follow up with the question about keeping I-70 open, and there's been investment on training and fire mitigation projects, and that's a huge deal for us, especially when we live close to Forest Service, when we know that a natural disaster can close our roads. So that, I just wanted to add that we're working together with a local group of coordination for fire mitigation for Eagle County, Garfield County, Pitkin, and Gunnison. And that's also a priority at the state level, and definitely collaborating with our federal partners like the BLM and the Forest Service.
Okay, this is awkward. My name is Mark Catlin. I'm a state representative for the 58th district, which includes Gunnison, Hinsdale, Ouray, Montrose. I've got 8 counties. Most of them are not mountain, but I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today. I'm from Montrose. I'm on the Ag Committee. I'm on the Transportation Local Government Committee, and I'm also on Capital Development. So, this is a good way for me to get acquainted with some of you folks that are up in the mountains and in the resort areas. A lot of our issues are probably going to be the same. I hear a lot of talk about I-70. In my district, Highway 50 in the little blue has caused a lot more trouble than what I-70 has. Particularly, we're having a construction project out there that's now, they've stopped construction now, but it's been closed during the summer. It's one lane, it's no lanes, it's those kind of things. And when your I-70 gets shut down, there's no way for us to get across the mountain either. So we are working with CDOT. We've tried to keep them informed as to what it does to our local communities. And, I think they've been responsive. Sometimes it's tough for them because in that project, particularly, it was controlled by the federal highway system. And even though Colorado had half of the money in, they wanted all of the say. Sometimes that doesn't work in our favor. And I think we learned something here on the Western Slope. Before we give federales all of the control, we need to have a pretty good working relationship with them, because in this one, some of the things weren't exactly the way we thought they would be. But transportation, highways, those kind of things, big deal for all of our constituents. And when your trouble is on I-70, we get a lot of your traffic, and that's, it's good to a certain degree, but then there's an awful lot of traffic out there on Highway 50. So I'm glad that you invited me. I'm sorry I'm getting here late, but if you have another one, I should make it on time. Thank you.
Representative Catlin, since you are joining us now, one question that was asked of your fellow legislators was, obviously there's a lot of priorities and a lot of things you want to get done in this session, but what is the one thing that you would want to get accomplished that you would consider this session successful in your mind?
Well, one is to keep people's hands off the Colorado River. That would be probably my major priority. The Colorado River is being looked at as the panacea for everyone, and Western Colorado is going to be asked to carry the load. We can't afford our water going downriver or going across the mountain any more than it's already doing it. And that's really what my focus has been for a number of years. I sat on the Ag and Water Committee, and those are the kind of things that we'll be looking at very seriously. Water has a lot of attention this year, so probably my priority is going to be water and keeping it in Colorado and keeping it on the Western Slope. That's going to be my priority.
So we have another question. This one is specific to Representative Lukens, that I believe a constituent emailed regarding the gun bill Elizabeth Epps is proposing, and any thoughts on that. And I think in general, knowing what this topic can bring, maybe a conversation on bipartisanship and coming to consensus with one another might be another topic of discussion.
Sure. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for the question, and thank you for emailing me. Like we said earlier, I very much appreciate when constituents reach out. So I know that a few of us legislators have been getting an increased amount of emails on this specific topic, and I would like to just note that the bill draft that we are referring to is actually a leaked bill draft, and so the bill hasn't even been introduced, and so legislators haven't even seen the most recent version version of the bill. I don't actually know what's in the text of the bill because from my understanding, the bill draft that was leaked is actually an older version of the bill. So of course, I really didn't make very many promises on the campaign trail, except for that I will look at the bill draft that's in front of me, read the bill draft, and make a decision based on what is in that bill. And so I don't actually feel like I can fully talk about the bill because I don't know exactly what is in it. And I know that there's kind of a lot going around in regards to this topic. And so I look forward to learning more about the bill once it's been introduced, once it makes it through committee, if it makes it through committee. Certainly controversial bills, have a lot of amendments. So I look forward to seeing if it makes it through committee, and if it does, what type of amendments are on that bill. That being said, the Second Amendment is certainly, we were sworn in on Monday where we said that we would uphold the U.S. Constitution and the Colorado Constitution, and that's certainly something that is, we will be upholding the Constitution, and the Second Amendment is part of that. Also, I like I said, I am a teacher, and every single month with my students, we would have to do lockdown drills where we'd all have to hide in the corner and practice doing lockdown drills. And myself and all of my students were all thinking the same thing. We're thinking, why are we doing lockdown drills, and thinking about what our state, what's going on in the country as far as gun violence. And so with all of that being said, I don't know what exactly is in this bill yet because it hasn't been introduced yet. And so I will certainly be taking into consideration everything that I'm hearing from constituents, what I'm hearing, and trying to do the best that I can do as far as representing our district, because this is a representative democracy. From my understanding, there might be a few bills coming forward at the state legislature this year in regards to addressing gun violence. And that's certainly something that's important to a lot of Coloradans, and that can come in a lot of different forms. I know that there's a number of bills as well that are coming to be supportive of folks folks that are facing a mental health crisis, and just in general, addressing the mental health crisis in the state of Colorado, addressing the mental health crisis in our K-12 schools. And so this is such a multifaceted issue, but I certainly love your opinions, and thank you so much for sending me your opinions on that particular topic.
Thank you so much. Representative Velasco, I know you had a hard stop at 5, so I know you'll probably have to drop off soon. Thank you so much for your time and for answering questions. I don't know if, since you will need to drop off, any parting thoughts for us and your constituents?
Yeah, I want to say thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you for participating, for logging in. And I look forward to serving our community, to chatting with you, to visiting your facilities, and to future conversations. So this is the first of many. As Megan said, we got sworn in on Monday, and very excited for the start of the session, to work hard for Western Colorado, and bring solutions for all in the state. So thank you so much.
And I do want to encourage anyone who has questions, feel free to put them into the Q&A. We are monitoring that. We have someone that just thank you for having this opportunity, and I'm a constituent of yours, so we can pass that information along to your representative. But one question I have, and I this is partially because I'm a transplant like many people in our state. We have lots of great ideas here in Colorado, and it's a very unique place. Are there any other states or areas that you look towards for either inspiration or good ideas that maybe we can put a Colorado twist on and bring here? Any other legislators you're looking at?
There are a lot of bills that are written in Colorado that use other bills in other states as templates. We have to craft them so that they fit our Constitution in our state. But a lot of bills come to Colorado from other states, and a lot of our bills go to other states. The surprise billing ban that we passed last year. We wrote that here, Representative Escar and myself. We passed it, and that's the bill that the federal government used in the legislation that they used on surprise billing. So it's kind of everybody shares things. If they're working, we want to find out, and we try to share them with others. We want them to share with us. A lot of bills that come to Colorado come from other states.
We have one remaining question in the Q&A, but I don't see it. We do see it about the hydroponic plant and silt, but based on the context of that particular item, don't know if that's something our legislators can actively answer, because it wasn't really a solid question. So we want to acknowledge the question was asked, but I think it's outside the purview of these elected officials. And as time has gone by, we know everyone's time is very important to them, and we want to appreciate everyone for their time here. Since I'm not seeing many other questions coming through, I'll give it like one more. I'll talk very slowly to see if anyone has anything else they want to add, but I think with that, I would just like to thank all of you for attending. And then we have a clarification. It's half cut off. Apologize. Can't get the full question, but it was in reference to House Bill 22-1301, which was utilizing hydroponic indoor farming for controlled environment. I think that requires looking back to see who was on that, but as we have one new legislator, Megan, you were not part of that. So I guess we'll have to put that one on hold for later.
That bill was passed to give some tax benefits to the people that were doing greenhouses. And I think it was kind of written to help those folks. What happened there, I have no idea. So, it's in silt, and I'm not positive what did happen or what didn't happen. But we at the legislature were trying to give them an opportunity, those are the people that are in the greenhouse business, an opportunity to succeed. So there were some tax benefits, some tax breaks, and trying to give them an opportunity to get started. So hopefully that won't dissuade others, because that certainly could be an answer for ag.
All right, now that I think I've given it sufficient time, there's no additional questions. There was one question to us, and that was, how can we join the Mountain Chamber Alliance? That is actually a group of chamber organizations. So I would just say continue to support your local chamber. And then we as chambers work together to have a louder voice, so that the mountain and rural areas can have a greater voice down at the State House. And again, thank you so much to our elected officials who have joined us today. We really appreciate your time, and we hope you have a good, productive legislative session, and we will be watching all those bills.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.